Under 2 kilometers from Plovdiv's polished city center lies Stolipinovo, a forgotten district. Many Bulgarians refuse to enter. No tourists, no postcards, just survival. It's Europe's largest ethnic slum home to tens of thousands of Roma living in a crumbling maze of concrete blocks, broken pipes, and blackout-prone alleys. Children bathe in buckets. Families burn trash to stay warm. Generations born without legal addresses or a way out. Here, tradition keeps beating weddings erupt in music and chaos while poverty presses in like a wall. This is not a tragedy from the past. It's a reality happening now, and the world barely blinks. Number 1. Origins of the Roma in Bulgaria. Before we can understand life in Stolipinovo, we need to understand who the Roma people are and how they came to be here.
When do you want to get married?
29.
Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson.
My name is Saleh Arslan.
The story of the Roma doesn't begin in Europe. It begins over 1,000 years ago in the northern regions of the Indian subcontinent. Linguistic and genetic studies, including a comprehensive 2023 report by the European Roma Institute for Arts and Culture, confirm that Roma ancestors migrated westward around the 11th century, passing through Persia, the Byzantine Empire, and eventually settling across Europe. These were not aimless wanderers. They were skilled artisans, musicians, blacksmiths, horse trainers, people with trades, knowledge, and culture. But history has not been kind to them. For centuries, the Roma were viewed with suspicion. They faced waves of persecution from forced assimilation and enslavement in Eastern Europe to deportations and genocide during the Holocaust. Even today, they remain one of the most marginalized ethnic groups in Europe, often living in extreme poverty and facing systemic discrimination. In Bulgaria, the Roma make up an estimated 7 to 10% of the population, depending on the source. Official census data tends to underreport partly due to social stigma and the fear of identifying as Roma. But organizations like UNICEF and the Council of Europe estimate that nearly 700,000 people of Roma heritage live in Bulgaria today. That's almost 1 in every 10 Bulgarians. What's important to understand is that the Roma are not a monolith. They're a mosaic of subgroups, each with their own dialects, customs, and traditions. In Bulgaria, you'll find Kalderash Lovari Burguji, and others each carrying pieces of their ancestral identity like embers passed down through generations. Despite internal differences, what unites most Roma communities is a strong sense of kinship and collective identity. They tend to live in tight-knit, self-contained neighborhoods, often on the periphery of cities or towns. These aren't just places to live, they're cultural ecosystems. Within them, Roma children grow up speaking Romani at home, learning social codes from elders, and participating in community rights from a very young age. Extended families often share living spaces, and the concept of family itself stretches far beyond the nuclear norm. In Stolipinovo, for example, it's not unusual to find 3 or 4 generations under one roof: grandparents, parents, children, and even cousins all living together. And then there's the code of honor. Loyalty, respect for elders, and communal support are cornerstones of Roma life. Conflicts are often resolved internally, and ceremonies, whether births, weddings, or funerals, are grand, symbolic, and open to the entire neighborhood. Religion, too, plays a role, with many Roma identifying as Christian Orthodox or Muslim, often blending spiritual traditions in ways that reflect their long nomadic history. Of course, there's a darker side to this separation. Years of marginalization have led to deep-rooted mistrust between the Roma and mainstream institutions. Many Roma children are still placed in segregated schools or given limited access to health care. According to a 2024 report by the European Commission, over 65% of Roma households in Bulgaria live in housing that does not meet basic sanitary standards. Employment discrimination remains rampant, and integration policies, while present on paper, often lack funding or local support. But here's the nuance that's often missed. Roma communities are not passive victims. They're survivors, innovators, keepers of ancient traditions. In places like Stolipinovo, amid all the chaos, you'll still hear laughter music. Storytelling evidence that culture doesn't just endure, it adapts. So when you look at Stolipinovo, don't just see crumbling buildings. See a people who've carried their identity across continents, wars, and centuries. A people who, despite being pushed to the edges, have built worlds of their own worlds worth understanding, not judging. And that's exactly what we're here to do. Keep watching. The real stories are just beginning. Number 2. Daily life in Stolipinovo. Life in Stolipinovo doesn't follow the rhythm of the rest of the city. It beats to its own drum raw, relentless, and deeply human. The streets here aren't lined with cafes or flower beds. Instead, they're packed with dirt roads, uneven cobblestones, and the occasional crater-sized pothole filled with rainwater. Most of the housing comes from a bygone-era Soviet-style apartment blocks built in the mid-20th century and barely maintained since. The paint has peeled off. The stairwells echo with silence and shadows. Some buildings lean slightly, their balconies reinforced with scrap metal and prayer. Inside, families adapt. In homes where electricity flickers and water cuts off without warning, generators buzz, candles burn, and large plastic containers store rainwater just in case. According to a 2025 joint report by the Bulgarian Academy of Sciences and Habitat for Humanity, over 50% of households in Stolipinovo experience intermittent or illegal access to electricity, while more than 40% rely on informal water systems prone to contamination. But the ingenuity here is striking. People make things work sometimes with little more than wire wood and willpower. On a weekday morning, you'll see a horse-drawn cart trotting down the main street, stacked high with plastic bottles or bags of firewood. Right beside it, a rusted hatchback from the 1990s coughs out thick smoke as it carries a family of 6 to the market. The contrast is sharp, but in Stolipinovo, it's just everyday life. Waste management, on the other hand, is a crisis that simmers in plain sight. Trash piles up in open lots, alleyways, and behind housing blocks. Municipal garbage trucks do come, but not nearly enough. In a 2024 local survey conducted by Plovdiv's Environmental Office, residents reported an average of 1 trash pickup per neighborhood every 9 to 10 days. Add to that a lack of official recycling programs and limited environmental education, and it's easy to see how this becomes more than just an inconvenience. It becomes a health risk. But here's where the picture complicates. Not everyone agrees on who's to blame. Some residents point to the government's neglect. Others admit that community accountability is also lacking. "We clean up in front of our house," one woman told me. "But if no one else does, what's the point?" It's a cycle. Neglect breeds hopelessness, and hopelessness breeds more neglect. As you move deeper into the district, you feel something shift. It's not just the landscape, it's the mood. The further you go, the more Stolipinovo feels like a world apart. Just 1.5 kilometers from Plovdiv's downtown cafes and tech offices, the air here is heavier. The shops sell second-hand clothes, and Turkish soap operas play on loop in barbershops. Stray dogs nap in the sun. Satellite dishes hang like mushrooms on concrete walls, And still, the people endure. Children kick old soccer balls through trash-strewn lots with laughter that feels defiant. Women lean out of balconies to trade gossip with neighbors below. Street vendors sell grilled corn sunflower seeds and homemade cigarettes rolled in newspaper. There's hustle. There's life. There's pride even if the surroundings tell a harder story. The truth is, Stolipinovo doesn't fit into any clean narrative. It's not just a slum, not just a ghetto, not just a forgotten place. It's a community caught in limbo, physically part of Plovdiv, but socially, economically, even psychologically walled off. And that's what makes this exploration so important. Not to highlight suffering for shock value, but to understand how urban inequality can shape an entire way of life. To see how people navigate systems that were never built for them. And to recognize that behind every crumbling facade, there's a story worth listening to. Because life in Stolipinovo is more than survival. It's adaptation. It's resistance. It's proof that dignity doesn't require perfect pavement or clean water. It just needs to be seen. Number 3. Culture, tradition, and Roma pride. If there's one thing that pulses through Stolipinovo louder than the traffic and the power generators, it's the beat of Roma culture. It's in the music, the movement, the metalwork, and especially the weddings. Let's start there, because a Roma wedding isn't just a ceremony. It's a community-wide celebration, a rite of passage, and a bold declaration of identity all wrapped into one. These weddings often last 3 to 5 days, filled with music, dancing, vibrant costumes, and non-stop feasting. Streets become stages. Tents go up. Whole families and even entire blocks join in. And it's not just for show, it's for bonding, for honor, for carrying forward traditions that have survived centuries of displacement and discrimination. The European Center for Roma Rights noted in its 2025 cultural survey that over 70% of Roma families in Bulgaria still host traditional weddings despite financial hardship. Families often save for years just to celebrate this one moment. Why? Because it matters. Because it says we are still here. And what's a Roma wedding, or any Roma gathering for that matter, without music? The sounds of the tambura, the violin, and the ever-present tapan drum fill the air at nearly every social event. But it's not just about the instruments, it's about the rhythm of the people. The dances are fast, fiery, and fearless. Young boys twirl in circles, while elderly women clap along feet, stomping in perfect time. It's contagious. Even if you've never danced before, your body wants to move. Roma music isn't just entertainment, it's expression, a release, a reminder that joy can coexist with struggle, and that culture is one form of resistance that no government, no poverty, no border can erase. But tradition doesn't stop at celebration. In many homes across Stolipinovo, craft is passed down like sacred knowledge. One trade in particular stands out: metalwork. Roma blacksmiths have been shaping iron for generations. Gates, fences, window grills, what others see as simple objects. Roma artisans turn into signature pieces of identity. You'll find intricate scrolls, floral motifs, and patterns that echo both Balkan and Middle Eastern influences. In fact, a 2024 report by the Bulgarian Ministry of Culture highlighted that 35% of Stolipinovo's working-age Roma men engage in manual trades, many of them in traditional blacksmithing and metal arts. And it's not just men. Women, too, contribute through sewing, embroidery, and jewelry making, blending utility with artistry in ways that often go unseen by outsiders. These skills aren't just about survival. They're about pride, about self-worth in a society that rarely offers it from the outside. Now let's talk about how this pride is worn literally. Traditional Roma attire isn't just colorful, it's coded. Women wear long layered skirts, often decorated with sequins and embroidery. Headscarves, bangles, and beaded jewelry aren't just for fashion. They represent modesty, marital status, and even family roots. Men often wear simple, sharp clothing, but it's the accessories like wide belts or hats that signal tradition. And above all of this flies a flag that many Roma hold close to their hearts. The Roma flag, adopted officially in the early 1970s, carries deep symbolic meaning. The blue represents the sky, the green is for the earth, and at the center is a red 16-spoked wheel, a nod to their nomadic past and eternal movement. In recent years, especially after the 2023 International Roma Day campaign across Europe, this flag has started to appear more visibly in communities like Stolipinovo as a symbol of both unity and quiet defiance. So yes, Stolipinovo may lack in public infrastructure, but in culture, in tradition, in identity, it's overflowing. And that's the paradox. While many look in from the outside and see only hardship, those within know a different truth, that dignity doesn't require perfection. It requires memory expression and the courage to keep dancing even when the floor beneath you is cracked. Number 4. Voices from the community. To truly understand Stolipinovo, you can't just walk the streets and observe from behind a lens. You have to talk. You have to sit, listen, and let the people tell their stories in their own words. That's where our guide came in. His name is NVL, a Roma man, born and raised in Stolipinovo. Tall, calm, and endlessly patient, he knows every alley, every family, every shortcut through the chaos. More importantly, he knows how to navigate the invisible boundaries, what to say, when to wait, and how to earn trust in a place that rarely trusts outsiders. Through NVL, we were welcomed into homes, workshops, and even a local bakery tucked between 2 crumbling apartment blocks. That's where we met Fatima, a mother of 6, who invited us in without hesitation. The smell of fresh bread filled her one-room flat, where her youngest child clung to her side while she spoke softly about identity. "We are Roma," she said, placing her hand on her heart. "But we are also Bulgarian. This is our country too." This dual identity runs deep in Stolipinovo. Most Roma here were born in Bulgaria, speak Bulgarian fluently, and follow national customs. Yet many still feel like outsiders in their own land. Religious identity reflects this complexity as well. While Bulgaria is predominantly Orthodox Christian, nearly 40% of Roma in Stolipinovo identify as Muslim, according to a 2025 survey by the Sofia-based Ethnic and Religious Research Institute. Others follow Eastern Orthodox Christianity, or a blend of both passed down through generations. In one block, a family might celebrate both Easter and Ramadan, lighting candles and sharing bread in equal measure. As we moved through the neighborhood, one thing became clear. Hospitality isn't a gesture here, it's a principle. People invited us in with steaming cups of Turkish-style coffee, homemade pickles, and an endless flow of questions. Where are you from? What do you think of us? Are you filming something good or just another video to make us look poor? These questions matter, because the Roma are tired of being misunderstood. And the young people in particular are done being silent. Take Milan, a 22-year-old aspiring DJ who dreams of playing in Sofia nightclubs. He speaks English, fluently picked up through years of watching subtitled movies and gaming with friends overseas. "I've never left Bulgaria," he told me, "but I've been to London, Los Angeles, and Tokyo online." He grinned, shrugging. That's how we learn. No teachers, just the internet. This self-taught multilingualism isn't rare. A 2024 EU Youth Integration Report found that more than 60% of Roma youth under the age of 25 in Bulgaria had conversational knowledge of at least one foreign language, mostly English, Spanish, or German. The reason many have family working abroad, sending money and stories back home. This global connection gives them hope. A sense that even from within the most isolated corner of Plovdiv, they are still part of a bigger world. And yet, despite the poverty and hardship, there's a kind of quiet pride here that money can't buy. One evening, Emil took us to a rooftop barbecue just 5 floors up, no elevator, no railing, and the best grilled chicken I've ever had. There was music, laughter, and a 10-year-old boy rapping in 3 languages while his grandfather clapped to the beat. No script, no show, just life. That's the paradox of Stolipinovo. The headlines talk about crime trash and poverty, but when you sit with the people, when you break bread and share stories, you realize this place isn't just surviving. It's living. Living with rhythm, with memory, with fire in its voice and music in its bones. And if you listen closely enough, that heartbeat, it just might change the way you see the world. Number 5. Urban challenges and social gaps. Life in Stolipinovo is full of contrasts. At first glance, you might think it's all hardship, cracked sidewalks, sagging buildings, and piles of trash. But the deeper you look, the more complex it becomes. This is not a one-story neighborhood. It's a web of challenges, resilience, and unexpected ambition. Let's start with the most visible issue: waste. Garbage collection here is inconsistent at best. Streets are often lined with overstuffed dumpsters, if dumpsters exist at all. Open lots turn into unofficial landfills. The smell becomes part of the atmosphere. According to a 2025 joint study by the Bulgarian Ministry of Environment and the European Public Health Alliance, over 65% of households in Stolipinovo report irregular or insufficient waste pickup, with nearly 1 in 3 saying, "Trash isn't collected for more than 10 days at a time." But the problem isn't just about the trucks not coming. It's also about coordination. There's a gap between the municipality's stretched resources and the community's trust in public systems. "We clean our area," one father told us, "but it gets dirty again because no one does it together. If the city helps, we'll help too." But they don't. And then there's the housing situation. Most apartment blocks in Stolipinovo were built during the socialist era and haven't seen serious renovation in decades. Many are 6 or 7 stories high with no elevators. For elderly residents or families with babies, that's not just inconvenient, it's punishing. One woman we met in her 70s climbs 5 flights of stairs every day with a cane and a plastic bag of groceries. When it rains, it gets worse. Flooding on the ground floors is common, especially in buildings with broken drains or clogged sewage. Water seeps in. Mold grows fast. But the repairs come slow, if at all. Basic utilities. Hit or miss. According to data from the 2025 Roma Inclusion Progress Report, nearly 40% of homes in Stolipinovo experience low water pressure weekly, and more than 1 in 5 rely on illegal or makeshift electricity connections. That's not just a safety risk, it's a survival tactic born out of necessity. These conditions take a toll, but they're not the whole picture. Let's talk about work, or the lack of stable work. Most people here survive on informal jobs, collecting scrap metal, doing construction, washing cars, or seasonal labor. Official employment numbers don't always reflect the reality because many jobs are off the books. The average monthly income per household in Stolipinovo is estimated to be under 700 Bulgarian leva, which is roughly equal to $380, well below Bulgaria's national average. It's no surprise, then, that thousands of residents have left the country entirely heading to Germany, the Netherlands, or the United Kingdom to send money home. These remittances keep many households afloat. But here's where the story shifts, because not everyone is struggling. As we walked through the neighborhood, we passed gleaming SUVs, freshly painted homes, and even the occasional satellite dish pointing toward Western Europe. These are signs of a growing middle-class Roma families who've worked abroad, saved up, and reinvested in their community. In fact, according to local government data, more than 15% of Stolipinovo households now own property outright and report income from foreign-based work. It's a quiet evolution happening behind the stereotypes. Success isn't loud here, but it's visible if you know where to look. Of course, inequality exists even within the neighborhood. The gap between families scraping by and those climbing up is widening. But this diversity of experience, this internal economic spectrum, is exactly what breaks the monolithic myth that all Roma communities are the same. So yes, Stolipinovo is facing challenges, big ones. But it's also full of people who hustle, adapt, and push forward despite the odds. What's missing isn't capability, it's opportunity. Real infrastructure, real policies that listen, real partnerships that don't just talk inclusion, but make it real. Because when a city leaves a neighborhood behind, it doesn't just lose territory, it loses trust. And rebuilding that takes more than concrete. It takes respect, it takes collaboration, and above all, it takes belief that this place too deserves better. Number 6. Blended cultures and complex identity. Walk through Stolipinovo, and you won't just hear one language, you'll hear 3, maybe even 4 in a single block. That's because this place isn't just home to the Roma community. It's also home to a large population of ethnic Turks, Bulgarian citizens of Turkish descent, many of whom settled here during and after the socialist era. What emerges from this coexistence isn't division, but a kind of cultural fusion that's messy, beautiful, and very much alive. The Roma and Turkish Bulgarians may come from different ethnic backgrounds, but daily life here blurs those boundaries. While their mother tongues differ, Romani for most Roma Turkish. For many ethnic Turks, the language of the street is something else entirely. Locals switch between Bulgarian Turkish and Romani, often within the same sentence. According to a 2025 socio-linguistic study from the University of Sofia, more than 70% of residents in Stolipinovo use at least 2 languages daily, with younger generations frequently blending them into a unique local dialect. And that's just the start of the crossover. At the open-air market, you'll find stalls selling halva and simit Turkish treats, right next to ones with homemade pickles and roasted red pepper staples in Roma kitchens. Kids from both communities play soccer in the same courtyards, go to the same schools, and swap slang like currency. They might go home to different religious traditions, Islam for many Turks, Islam or Eastern Orthodox Christianity for many Roma. But the neighborhood itself is a shared stage. The call to prayer echoes from a mosque just down the street from a small Orthodox chapel. And during holidays like Bayram or Easter, families exchange sweet stories and respect. Still, for all this overlap, identity here is far from diluted. In fact, it's fiercely preserved. Most residents of Stolipinovo, whether Roma Turkish or both, see themselves as Bulgarian citizens first. They pay taxes. They vote. They speak the national language. But that doesn't mean they've left their roots behind. Far from it. Cultural traditions are deeply rooted, celebrated, even protected within the home and the community. Take weddings, for example. While Roma weddings tend to be large, music-filled marathons, Turkish celebrations often follow a different rhythm with more religious ritual and traditional dress. But both are vital. Both are declarations of identity in a society that often overlooks them. According to a 2024 report from the Center for Ethnic Integration in the Balkans, 92% of families in Stolipinovo say they continue to observe cultural customs specific to their ethnic group, even while adapting to modern Bulgarian life. And that's the nuance we don't hear enough about. Because it's easy to label neighborhoods like this as ghettos or ethnic enclaves and stop there. But what Stolipinovo really represents is cultural layering, not assimilation, not total separation. something more complex, a lived negotiation between heritage and belonging. People here aren't asking to be rescued from their identity. They're asking to be seen within it, to be recognized not just as Roma or Turk, but as people who straddle multiple worlds, sometimes with tension, often with creativity. And while the rest of Bulgaria may look at Stolipinovo and see a fringe, those who live here see something else entirely. A mirror reflecting how cultures can mix without losing themselves. A reminder that national identity and ethnic pride don't have to cancel each other out. They can exist in conversation side by side, in a shared hallway or a courtyard filled with kids who don't care which language a joke is told in, as long as it's funny. So if you ever find yourself in Stolipinovo, don't just look for the differences. Listen for the blend. Because in this place, identity isn't either or, it's everything at once. Thank you for joining us on this journey, not just across a few city blocks in Plovdiv, but into the heart of a community too often misunderstood. Just steps away from Roman ruins and tourist cafes lies Stolipinovo, a place where life is tougher, louder, and rawer, but no less human. This documentary wasn't just about travel. It was about people, about culture identity, and what it means to belong when the world around you often turns away. If there's one thing we hope you take with you, it's this. Diversity isn't something to fix, it's something to understand. Every community, no matter how marginalized, holds value. And the first step toward change isn't charity, it's empathy. If this story moved you or made you think differently, consider subscribing to NVL Travel Documentary for more journeys like this. Leave a comment, share your thoughts, and help us keep these conversations going. Because sometimes the most powerful way to travel is by seeing the world through someone else's eyes.